you so much for joining us on the Hurt Healing podcast.
Thank you.
So nice to have you here today.
I'm honoured and excited.
Oh, I'd love to start by discussing your work and what really drew you to it in the first place. What was your why behind it?
It was my own pain. So, I mean, I had a mega burnout when I was 29, 44 now. And because I thought I was doing all the right stuff. You know, I had a job in London, I had a house with the right postcode and the Range Rover on it and all the things. And, you know, my then-to-be husband and everything on paper was perfect and what I'd always been told that I wanted. But I was just perpetually unwell. Like, I had gut issues, but it wasn't an intolerance. I went for all the tests, you know, and it wasn't gluten. Like, I was actually intolerant to my life. So I was being pushed away from the things, if you like, I was desperately trying to hold on and make work because that's all I'd known. And sort of I went through a coaching experience, then went to training coaching myself and ended up doing trauma work. But in all of that, what I found out was that me pushing was really trying to outrun my trauma. I had a very violent childhood. I had a really difficult time understanding or accepting me because me being me got me hurt. Me being me was bad and wrong. This is from being a child, obviously. And so I'd learned to just be anything other than myself. And that pursuit of trying to force myself into, you know, this mask and people pleasing and trying to be perfect all the time ended up just damaging me from the inside out. And so that's why, because I've been in that place where you're trying everything and nothing's working. And it doesn't really until, for me, I got my ass served back to me. I was humbled in my burnout. And that was the first time I couldn't push harder at something. And that really made me go, oh, okay, like I physically can't. And so I really do need to now face these things that I've been trying to run away from.
Where do you think the anxiety began? Were you an anxious little girl? I mean, can you go back to your childhood?
I do remember a couple of things. I remember not wanting to take up time or be like a nuisance. I can remember like, you know, going to the, you know, I grew up, I'm an 80s baby, right? And I can remember like a little bit of independence, going to the corner shop to go and get some, I don't know, chocolate or something. And I remember really wanting to like just have the exact change or like just not take too long in the queue. And I can remember it being so shy. And this is the times of having home phones when you wanted to ring a friend or something, and that being so painful for me to do that. I mean, I don't think anyone necessarily loved it, but I do remember feeling really, really burdened by my shyness a lot. And that I'm really happy to own it. I can still be quite shy in certain settings now. Like, people don't expect that of me. Been with my boyfriend now for a couple of years, so that's fine. But like early dating, I remember saying to him on a sort of third date dinner, I said, I know I might come off a little bit cold, and you just allow me like an hour and I'll settle into it, because it's actually shyness and I just need to sort of relax into the environment and I'll be fine.
And were you the type of person that would push yourself as a girl at school? I mean, were you sort of a perfectionist? Were you?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of violence going on in my household at home at the time, so it was more about trying to not be in trouble, not be bad, not be hurt, not be ashamed. So my father would not only physically hurt me, and my mother colluded, she knew all of it and would also sort of double down on it being my fault. So I didn't want to be physically hurt, but also they would mentally and emotionally shame me. I remember a time that my daughter's 9 now, I was definitely younger than that, and my father made me go downstairs to get the dictionary to read aloud what a moron was and why I was a moron. Yeah, I mean, like really awful things. And then it was like my mother and him laughing in bed about how stupid I was. And, you know, so it was more that I think I did want to do well at school because I didn't want people to think I was stupid. I didn't know I was stupid, because obviously I believed this. You know, I really believed that I was this bad, stupid girl. So I was probably desperate at school, more like not to shine, but I just wanted to blend in. I remember even my name, I wanted to be called Sarah or Louise or anything that was like normal at the time. I didn't want to have an unusual name, and I just wanted to just, like I say, almost disappear. That was what I wanted.
So that feeling of wanting to disappear is actually interesting, because it feeds quite a lot into your work today, and that you really talk about how women can show up for themselves and can actually take up space and speak up for themselves in your brilliant book, Unapologetic. So it speaks volumes to that, which we'll come back to. But I think it is really interesting, isn't it, when you have that inherent sense of shame and I'm not enough, and you're always then striving for more. And I think it's something that so many people struggle with. And there's this age of productivity, and we think we need to do more and more and more. And actually, I was listening to a brilliant interview that Oliver Burkeman did the other day, and he was just saying, you know, productivity is actually doing less well. And yet we've been fed this myth. But I think if you have got that inbuilt sense of I'm not enough, you do think that doing more is going to fix something inside you.
Yeah, totally, because you just think that, exactly that one. And also possibly you're being validated. I talk about this a lot, and actually I love Oliver Burkeman's work. I love it. And then also like the Harville Hendrix as well, sort of in the Getting the Love You Want. But they talk about in that book exits, how we take exits from basically, again, intimacy with either our partners or friends, but also with ourselves. So the exits can be things like exercise and staying late at work. And, these things you're going to be celebrated for, right? Oh, Pandora, well done. You're doing so brilliantly, like working so hard at that thing. Because it's like, these are things that we've almost grown up that if we put extra effort in there, then you usually are rewarded. In school, you're rewarded for the most conscientious pupil, right? You get, head girl or boy is usually because you're doing over and above and caring for others. There's a lot of kind of leadership. There's a lot of stages of celebration that are about giving more. So exactly that. I think that not only is it societal, it's celebrated, you get validation for it. You get to be good. I was always a bad girl, I believe, so I get to be a good girl if I do things like that. And it's also, for me, was a way of kind of hiding. I am very nurturing, double water sign. So, I am genuinely a very nurturing, loving person. But it was also a way of hiding within helping others. So, if I'm giving to other people, and it's always really easy to get other people to answer questions if you don't want to, and talk about themselves and help them out and dive in to help a friend first and things like that. It allowed me not to show up when I wasn't ready.
So you went through your burnout, and what did the burnout really manifest itself in? I mean, what did that look like for you?
I was just ill all the time. I had a really big job, worked in town in London and in the West End, had a really glitzy job as well. So I did a lot of travel. I would go, I worked in like property and construction, but my market was very high end. So beautiful apartments, lovely hotels, things like that. So I had an amazing job. A lot of it involved hospitality, so eating out, dining with clients, that sort of thing. And it got to the point that I was so anxious that I thought I had IBS. I thought that I had, like I say, a gluten intolerance. So I went for tests. It honestly got to the point I thought it was sparkling water, air conditioning. Like I truly thought, because sometimes it would be okay, sometimes it wouldn't. And that in itself would make you so anxious because it was part of my role and you're trying to be engaging and entertaining with someone and learning about them, and all you're thinking about is, oh, please don't let me, be unwell today or whatever it might be. And so then I was starting to do all the things that you think you should. So I've been to a doctor, I've been to a retreat, I've been to a holistic person, I've been to an intolerance clinic, and it was none of those things. And I'm doing all the things I think I should still. I'm training hard, I'm eating whatever foods I'm meant to be doing, and all the rest of it. And it was just this chronic sense of just fatigue, like all the time, just overwhelming fatigue. And like I say, for me, it was manifesting as gut and stomach issues, which I also understand is where I was storing all the trauma, things you're not speaking, you're storing. So my body was in there anyway, and I was just doubling down on it. Like a term about thinking about depression is when you're quite literally like depressing things down into your system and like compacting it further and further in. And for me, shame as well is a felt sense, and it's rooted deeply in your system. So my system was in tatters, but I just didn't know that. And I was trying my best to really, what I know now is Band-Aid, but I hadn't really got hold of what was actually happening because I didn't want it to be true. I didn't want the thing to be true was that I was not intolerant to gluten. I was 100% intolerant to my life. And that meant that I had to change everything.
Yeah, and it is interesting how all these behaviours, they just do tend to exacerbate that sense of shame. And you inherently know, I think, well, you don't to begin with, but when you start to pick up on the fact that actually I'm just pushing all this stuff down to avoid, the behaviour in itself then becomes slightly toxic because you start to sort of see it as actually it's not a friend. It's like, I think when you're eating, constantly becoming very cautious about what you're eating and the way you're exercising, quite often that that's actually just a controlling mechanism, and it's a way of just avoiding the pain because, like we said before, you're sort of praised for doing all these virtuous things, and yet you kind of know, well, actually, if I was in the right space, I'd be able to actually just let go of it all and just feel. How did you then begin to start that process of feeling?
So a really good friend of mine, Nikki, had just started doing coaching work. She'd just been to San Francisco. Now, this is about 15 years ago. So coaching was not cool. It was a bit woo and weird. And everyone's a bit like, oh, here we go, like latest thing in San Francisco. And she said, let me do a guided visualization for you. And I was like, I'll take anything. You know, I love this friend, you know, I'll do anything. And she took me to a place in that visualization, which I now know obviously was accessing my subconscious, that I hadn't got anywhere near. Like I'd done Ashtanga because it was a hard form of yoga. You know, I'd never accessed that place. I'd never done meditation. I'd never done anything, now I know, slow. Like my nervous system was in bits. But she did this guided visualization for me. I remember it so well. And so many things kind of came out of it that I couldn't possibly have known, like having one daughter, like my husband wasn't around. So it's like, oh, you know, there were lots of things that kind of came up in that vision. And it was just so profound, and it connected in a way to me that, say, like training hadn't done. You know, it had basically got out the noise. It got away from the anxiety and got into this deep inner wisdom, my subconscious. So, but being a type A, I was like, right, I need to find out everything about this coaching thing. I need to know what this coaching thing's all about. So then I went off to San Francisco myself, did the first couple of courses because I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it really, really well at the best place because that is just kind of how I'm built. And honestly, I thought I could just turn up there, do the training. I'm good at doing exams and stuff like that. And I'd just kind of get away with it. As in, I didn't think I'd have to show up. I thought I'd just get the qualification and this would be great and I can do coaching for a job. And what I didn't expect was that I turned up there like the Brit with all the Californians, and I had my walls shattered and broken down. And that was the first time that I'd ever been challenged, held, called out, seen, loved, championed in a way that I hadn't probably allowed myself or been in the environment for before. And it was truly so transformative. And if I knew I'd been going through it, I probably wouldn't have done it. I probably wouldn't have gone along and had that challenge, but it came to me at the right time. And yeah, that was a real unpacking of the armour that I had so expertly put on ever since I was a kid. You know, ever since I was, you know, trying to basically hide in plain sight, trying to disappear within groups, you know, finding areas of validation, perhaps some of them in the wrong places, looking back. That was the first time that I felt anywhere close to starting to unpeel those layers.
And what did you discover about yourself that you weren't aware of when you went into that training?
I really remember, because things are challenging because they're triggering, aren't they? And I really remember a lot of the course were being like, you're too perfect, like you're too perfectly put together. And, you know, there's never like a hair out of place. There's never, and I'd learned that. I'd learned to just, again, like hide. So if there was nothing strange about me, then you wouldn't notice anything, if you know what I mean. So if you just sort of fitted in, then no one would see anything. And they were like, we just really want you to get a bit messy, but just be a bit like a, I think they said like a, you know, it's very American, but like a messy, like warrior goddess kind of thing. And that was really challenging to me, to let go, to not control, to not try and, like I say, sort of, I'd been so good at hiding that it was really hard for me to kind of allow that out. Like we talked off air, I have turned up here in the gym kit I did Pilates in this morning and just got the tube, you know, and I didn't think you would mind, but this is also sort of part of my own, and I don't use this lightly, like part of my own kind of recovery, that I'm really happy for you and your audience, everyone, to see me completely authentically as I am. Like I don't, and that is a huge thing for me because I didn't used to feel like that. I used to feel like I had to present something else. So this is kind of part of my recovery, if you like, into being authentically me.
Well, thank you for doing that, because I also think it's, I mean, I've had to have some firm words with my producer because I always am too casual, and I've never had that. It's interesting, isn't it, how we all do things in different ways. I think because of my anorexia, my way of disappearing was to literally to make myself smaller and to not really actually give any attention to my appearance because I didn't want to draw attention to myself. And that's actually been, for me, in the last couple of years, quite a realization, because, you know, I never wear makeup, for example, and it's almost like subconsciously, I didn't want to attract men. I was giving off this image of like, no, don't come near me. I'm not interested. And I could never understand. I used to say to my friends, you know, it's like I walk around with this like Post-it note on my head saying, do not approach me. I'm not available, because I never get, you know, guys coming up to me or just flirting. And actually you do start to learn that, you know, all our ways of wearing different masks, whether that's, you know, being a perfectionist and doing yourself up a lot and like looking amazing all the time, or whether it's doing the opposite of what I was doing. It's kind of finding that middle ground, isn't it? And I think it's so beautiful when someone just, like you said, you show up authentically as yourself, but it's done with a sense of just like self-love and self-acceptance as well. And I'm not saying that we all get it right all the time, because I still walk around like in my gym kit most of the time with a sort of scruffy ponytail and whatever, look pretty unapproachable still. But you sort of slowly, it's rebuilding that connection with yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like, thank you for talking about that, because I used to self-harm as well. So I used to habitually skin pick. So it is a form of OCD, as I know that you all know. And I did it twice a day. And I don't like to say good or bad, but it was particularly active during the time of the breakdown of my marriage. And that was habitual. A lot of people that do have self-harming behaviours, it's often is ritualised. It's often ritualised around eating as well. And for me, it was ritualised because it was in the shower, which was the only place that to me was like safe and enclosed. My daughter was very young at the time. My ex-husband was there. It's when things were really, really difficult in the marriage. And that was the only place I could sort of shut the door and be alone. And I imagine this resonates. Like, I never felt it. I mean, there would be blood pouring down my hands. And if I was to do that on my arm, I remember once thinking that, like, if I was to do this on my arm, it would really hurt. And yet I was doing it to my face so much that I would look at my hand and like come round. I'd kind of come round from an attack. I'd be like, oh God. And it was from working with my own therapist and ultimately working on my shame that I realised it was the stress in my system of this perfection, of this, it was me clawing the mask off. It was the stress of me trying to hold everything together, appear a certain way. And, I was in my mid-late 30s with a kid and I had really bad skin. Or so I thought. This is how kind of the whole thing manifested, was I truly believed I had bad skin. And then when I went into the shower with all these acids, I use hardly anything on my face now, skincare wise. It's been part of my own process as well, is like the things they tell you if you've got acne is like acids and like retinols and like hard things that are really aggressive. And I think in a way that exacerbated the harming, because it was also, like I say, it was all kind of geared towards this sort of aggressive approach. I never felt the pain, and it was my therapist and working with her that helped me to understand that was because I could never ever felt safe, and it was my way of discharging this stress that I was feeling from my system. It was the silent scream. It was the silent scream from my system over years, but particularly in what was happening to me. And that was me trying to claw off this mask of perfection, and the shame I felt. The shame I felt as a grown-up, married, adult woman with a kid, slathering makeup on to hide the harm that I'd done to myself, like literally on my face. And I didn't feel that, you make promises to yourself, you're like, I won't do it again. And then here I am doing it again. And then how weak am I? How stupid am I? How awful am I? And I was, weirdly enough, I was listening to a podcast of myself on the way here because I hadn't heard it yet. It was one I did with a lovely guy in the States. And I was saying that, and I'd forgotten, that my book deal, I got my book deal based on me writing that chapter, like the most shameful time in my life. And I just think that it's the most liberating part as well for me, and that is what, and I insisted on the publisher that I work with, like they had to, this is what this book's going to be about, and we're not watering it down and we're not making it 10 steps and click your fingers and we're cured. Like, this is going to be really, really real, because that's what it is. And just the other side of it, it's almost strange for me now because it feels so different to me. But I remember, and to your point, I remember hiding myself or feeling like I had to hide, and even certain lights, because obviously I've done certain damage to myself. And then even the first time going for like a facial, when you have to show someone kind of what you've done to yourself, and not the nice one with candles and birdsong in the dark. It was like the big light, and thankfully Sadaf, who has helped me through this amazingly, was incredible and really supportive and shared some of her own journeys. But yeah, it's like that shame is such a macabre master of misery. And it is an integration, learning how to show up for yourself afterwards and what feels authentic. And, sometimes for me, I am there, like I say, there are still little bits of me that are a bit of a shy girl, and that's okay. And there are bits of me sometimes that, are absolutely, can be the opposite in certain environments, and that's also all right. And I'm a complete patchwork of many different things, and I've really learnt to accept that about myself now, but it is a journey.
It's definitely a journey, and thank you for sharing that with us, because I know, sometimes I do sometimes feel with some of these conditions, they've been slightly glamorized and they're easier to talk about than others. And obviously every addiction is horrible, and at the root, I think, of all our behaviors and mental illnesses is definitely some kind of shame. But I think the skin picking, it's not something that's really spoken about enough, and it's a subtype of OCD that I'm keen to dive into a bit more. But I do think this shame it eats you up from within, and it's something that a lot of people who haven't suffered with mental illness really underestimate, because I think, it's like, to liken it to my own experience, people would say to me about my OCD, well, just stop it saying, it doesn't mean anything, so just stop it. So then the shame sets in, and then you start doing everything, all your compulsions in secret, like with the skin picking. So I would be getting up at 3 a.m. to do my exercise routine, because my OCD convinced me if I didn't, then something awful was going to happen. And then similarly with my eating disorder as well, if I didn't eat in a specific way, then, again, this sort of terrible outcome would occur. And I was in that fight or flight mode, and it literally felt like I was going to die. And people who can't relate just can't understand. I was trying to explain to a friend, actually, who I was staying with this weekend, it's like that visceral reaction that goes on in your body. It is literally, your whole nervous system is so dysregulated that it's like, I've got to do this come rain or shine. Like, literally, I've got to do this, otherwise I am going to be eaten by a lion.
Yeah, it has to come out. Then that's when, like I say, with my therapist, and you probably have seen it, but my therapist's files are in the book from when she first met me. So I think this might be a well-versed, but I've waived my own right to anonymity so that my files can be in the book, because I just wanted anyone that's hearing this or feeling that to know that if you're like, oh, this is resonating, maybe I need to talk to someone about it. I wanted to put her first impressions of me in the book so that you can see that people are not there to judge. Like, it really is okay to turn up feeling completely fucked up. Like, to your point, I can't stop. Like, I make promises to myself. I make all these promises. I have all these things that I'm going to do or not do, or stages. And then it, like you say, it's just this overwhelming urge, which when she helped me understand it was the stress, and then changing, other things in my life, and fundamentally facing the truth I didn't want to face in my life at that time, and working through that was completely game changing. And then obviously on my journey, I say obviously EMDR was a huge part of that for me as well. That really reframed so many things for me, which is why I practice it now. But I think you're so right. And for me, shame, having been in relationship with shame myself, been in relationship for months, writing the book, going over and over and over and over so many different things, in the editing process and everything else, few things came up that I had totally repressed. I mean, totally, completely repressed them. And through doing research came up. So then I'm live writing the book, working through some other stuff, like on the job. But after you've done it, and after you've faced some of this shame, and you start talking about it now, I was smiling when you were saying it about the urge, which may have looked really bizarre, but because I resonate so much. And I really am so pleased that you and I are having this conversation, because I know for a fact, when I first went for that facial, it was around this time last year, and I just filmed a video on the hop in Battersea Park and said, look, I'm going for this facial right now. I haven't really spoken about it this openly, but this is my experience. This is what I did. I'm feeling really nervous. This person's about to shine the light on the damage I've done to myself. Just letting you all know. I had so many comments on the video, women. I've done that. I bite my fingers. I pull my lashes. I didn't know there was a name for it. Like, I burn my legs in the shower. I burn myself. I had the same number of DMs from men. The same. Exactly the same comments, the same conditions, the same things. So I'm really passionate about having all of these conversations so openly, because one, shame can't survive, and we get it out into the light. And two, I know for a fact there are people who were like myself, perhaps like yourself, who thought I was mad, and I'd never get better, and I'd never meet a nice partner, or I'd never be free, or I'd never be able to do a job or anything. I'd never get away from this horrible secret, and I'd have to do it more and more in secret. And how do I manage when I travel and share a room with someone, and all these sorts of things, all these thoughts. And it is completely possible to be utterly free of shame.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think that's when you're in the midst of it, you just can't see a way out. And I think I've been, for so many years of my life, like for over 20 years, it was just that this is just it. I've just got to figure out how I'm going to manage this. Like you said, if I'm ever in a relationship, which, still is something that I'm definitely more ready than I've ever been for, but I don't know whether that's ever going to be on the cards, because I do still see a lot of my behaviors as being quite extreme, quite weird. Who's going to tolerate me? But ultimately, I'm not as ashamed about myself towards myself. And I think that's when, once you can start to ignite that sense of self-acceptance, and actually to see yourself as a worthy person, and actually, it's okay, Pandora, I I can go and stay with a friend and have a day off the gym, and like the whole world's not going to fall down, and you don't have to be this this disciplinarian and get up at 6 a.m. and push and push and push, because it's the yin and the yang in life, right? And if you can get the yin and the yang to balance, then you're on the right path. And I think so often people who share a similar personality type to us, where we're sort of like push, more. Actually, when you start to like let that shame to dispel somewhat, you do start to realize, I can actually look after myself and I'll be okay. And actually I'll feel a lot better for it.
Yeah, I love what you've just said. Yeah, just that, this is what I am. This is who I am. This is what I like, is what I don't like, is what I do, is what I don't do. And I'm really okay with that. And it's also okay if you don't like that. And and I'm okay with whatever you're doing as well. It's just such a freeing place. And I just know for myself, having been there, to being here, it feels, I always say I've had like 2 lives, and one was shameful. I lived a shameful life, a life so full of shame. It controlled and dictated, every part of my day, everything that I was planning or thinking or doing. And, would there be blood on a pillow, like on a Hindu when I woke up somewhere, and, all those sorts of things. And like, everything you're saying, like planning around things almost to keep the shame even more hidden, and all the more things you need to do, and that even more layers to it. And then right now, when, it could be too late, I really hope you're not thinking that. You're definitely going to be having a beautiful relationship. But like, you get to my age with a kid, and, you think, it could be getting later. And I honestly, truly believe that my life is just beginning at 44. I really believe that. I've never felt more energetic. I've never had more love in my life, or felt more loved, including towards myself. And the reason that I'm so sort of, I guess, liberated now is I used to think about everything, as I'm sure you did, like the planning, it was such a big part of my brain and my energy and my body, and like trying to manage things and hide my shame and all this sort of stuff and people please and everything else. I don't think about a thing now. My brain is empty most of the time.
Wow.
And I had such chronic anxiety. This is, not being flippant. It was so chronic. I'm having Botox put in my jaw because I was like clenching so badly. It was going into my neck and all of these sorts of things. And I literally, it's rare for me that I have sort of, exciting things in my mind, things I want to do. I'm still very much a go-getter. I'm still going to be going after things. I'm still quite type A. That's inherently part of who I am, I think. And we can use that for good, as a force for good. But I don't tend to ever think about the things that I would have to manage, or even other people's perhaps experiences or expectations of me. And that is freedom.
And I think that's something you convey in the book as well. It is showing up as being unapologetically you. And even if we do have our idiosyncratic ways and our quirks, it's actually just owning them. I'm someone like, I do like to eat in quite a specific way. And it's actually, if I'm a healthy way, and if I'm, looking after my body, and if my bloods are all kind of, as they should, and my hormones are all regulated, then that's okay. Like, why does it matter if I like to eat in a healthy, particular way? It doesn't need to dictate my behavior and dictate where I go. And similarly with the exercise, I will probably always be the type of person that likes to be active, but I want to get to the stage where it doesn't sort of hold me in its claws and cause me so much anxiety if I can't do it. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm definitely a lot further on than I was 2 years ago. And I think it's sometimes, I always say this, is looking down the mountain and seeing how far you've come, as opposed to always looking up it. And owning also, like you said, your personality type. You're always going to be a high achieving perfectionist in some ways. And you have to rein that in and recognize that that's my high achieving perfectionist voice going on overdrive now, but also recognizing that you like to do things, and you like to actually, do a lot and achieve a lot. And that's also okay, as long as it's not coming from that, to trying to fill that void from within.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you shared that as well. It's a beautiful metaphor to look and see what you've done and how far you've come. And it sounded very loving towards yourself as well.
Well, I just think in our recovery journey, so often we can berate ourselves in the process of recovery, because it is so long and slow. And if you had told me at 12 years old that I would still be in the position I'm in 23 years later, I'd be like, oh my God, I'll give up now.
Yeah, I'll roll
whatever.
over.
What's the point? But actually, like you said, the beauty starts to appear just in those little pockets of joy in day-to-day life. And you can have days like yesterday. I had a shit day. I was feeling, I didn't know what was wrong with my energy. It was just on the floor. I don't know whether it was hormonal, whatever it was. But I was like, I'm just going to ride this day out because today is just not my day. The Monday before, I'd had this amazing day and I was I'd been watching that series, The Summer I Turned Pretty. And I literally had the playlist on. I was walking through the park in the sunshine. And I was like, I feel great. And I was like, enjoy this moment because it's going to pass. And tomorrow might not be such a great day. And even this afternoon might not be such a great afternoon. But it's actually just acknowledging that joy is, and sort of those moments are sort of transient and they will pass. But that's what gives life its sort of beauty, is the ups and the downs. And I think, again, those of us who do fall into that perfectionist bracket, we tend to expect the ups to just be everlasting. And unless they are everlasting, everything's awful.
Yeah, and something we've done wrong. And I love what you talked about there, is because a really helpful analogy for me about anxiety that also helped shift things for me was that anxiety can be defined as the inability to be in the present moment. So it sounds like when you had that pocket of joy, the sun was on your face, you're in the park, sounding quite present.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, I had an absolute shocker yesterday. Maybe something in the water. And definitely hormonal. Like, there was like, yesterday I was like, and to your point, I was like, I'm just going to bed. Like I said, tomorrow I wake up and it's a new, and that's fine. Some days are not ones I'm going to be able to reclaim or recapture or put a mantra on it, and it's not going to change anything. You know, some days we just get through. And I did all the things I would need to do. I did really beautiful hard work. I know I helped other people. I did some exercise that's good for me, that's like regulating my nervous system. It was what it was. You know, we just have to park it, sometimes draw a line under it. But yeah, I think that the working out, right, hang on a minute, I'm not feeling good. So that's telling me that I'm not present, so that I'm having some form of anxiety. If I'm raking over the past, coulda, woulda, shoulda-ing, that's slightly more guilt-oriented. You know, I can learn from that. Okay, maybe I won't do that again, or see that person, or whatever it is that made me feel this way. If I'm catastrophizing over the future, how will I survive? What am I going to do about this? What's happening? What on earth next? Then that is me fully into kind of an anxious state. And just all of those things are information. I am not present right now. So can I do anything about it? A bit like yesterday, yes or no. I did the things I could. It definitely shifted things a bit. But to your point, it wasn't ever going to be a complete, you know, oh, we turned this around, which is my old go-to type. You know, I've got to make everything and everyone feel great. The other thing, like being that if somebody else is having a bad experience, I have to jump in and save them and G them up as well, which actually could be horribly annoying for them. They probably just want to be able to be in their own experience as well. But yeah, I found that piece of information so helpful, because then if I am feeling like, okay, what's happened? What have you either done or not done? Who have you been around? What's going on? You know, what is it that's pulled you from your presence, basically? And just, again, use it as learning. We're always recalibrating.
Yeah, and I think as women, sometimes we do have to... So again, I think as women, sometimes we do just have to accept that hormones play a huge part in it. And life can be a roller coaster. And it's sometimes actually... like you said, just put a line under it. It's not been a great day, and that's okay. Tomorrow might be better. It might not, but things will improve eventually. And I think sometimes when you're in the midst of that sort of just that overwhelm and that sense of shame and that sense of just, I've got nowhere to go, it can really get on top of you. And it's that analogy that your feelings are like the weather, and they will come and go. And also don't get too consumed by your thoughts, because if I have a day like yesterday, I do often think, oh my God, I'm going mad, I'm spiraling, like what am I doing with my life? Like nothing's ever going to go my way. And you do, and you start to sort of get into this negative vortex, and it's sometimes just like, stop, no, it's a bad day today.
Step off.
And just step off, yeah, exactly. Will you talk to us about your type of OCD? Because I'd like listeners to just understand a bit more about it, because again, I think it's a subtype of OCD that a lot of people aren't aware of. And how did it start, and then how did you sort of get out of it?
So the subtype of OCD that sort of skin picking belongs with can come, like a lot of people do that. A lot of people chew to the skin, nails, like to bleeding. A lot of people do that. Picking hands, picking legs, like I say, burning. So burning in the shower, burning the back of picking your back as well is a really common one. So anywhere really where you are, you know, it's a habitual OCD, ritualized form of skin picking to the point of, if you like, destruction to a part of your skin and area. For me, how did it start? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. As in, I can't pinpoint the time it started exactly, but I know my daughter was very young. And I know I don't have a relationship with my parents due to the classic violence. And so I didn't really want them being around or having any role in my daughter. I believe my job is to keep her safe. I don't see them as safe people. And then my marriage was imploding, and that was deeply shameful because I had a perfect life that I should be really grateful for. And, surely I should be able to just suck this up. And, why am I so ungrateful? Why am I not satisfied? What's wrong with me? That's what I thought at the time, thought I was very broken. And the stress, and I think the compound of obviously deeply anxious at that time as well. I did not know what was going to be happening in the future. You don't know where you're going to live. Don't know how I'm going to, don't know anything about what your life's going to look like. I had a client in this week, actually. She had a horrendous betrayal and has got 2 young children, and was just saying one of the hardest things to reconcile is the image that you had. You can't guarantee things, but there was a certain image that I had certainly for the next few years, and it's just been ripped away, and I don't have a home for any of this right now. And so that's kind of what I was going through, and of course it was me that wanted to leave. So then I'm carrying the guilt as well, that I'm going to be the one that presses this button, I'm going to be the one that blows this up. I have to make Oliver Burkeman make the right decision, the pressure. I am going to make a decision that is potentially going to be something I'm going to regret, ruin people's lives, mess up my kid. So it was all of this going on all at once. And then, like I say, I know now the shower was a place I could shut the door from both my daughter and my husband and have time to myself. And I truly, for a long time, thought I had bad skin. And, then you'll start using these products, and then the products, like I say, kind of give you a little because they're quite hard and painful, and those sorts of things I think make you, it's aliveness usually. It's either numbing or aliveness typically when I'm working with any form of addiction or OCD. And so for me, like I say, I never felt the pain ever. It was a way of completely numbing to what was going on. But there was also a discharge of stress. So for most people, when they're doing any kind of biting, picking, scratching, burning, there is a sensation, but it then sends you to a place of numbness. So you almost get to exit your body to a degree, or you exit your mind in that moment, because the physicality is taken over. I mean, do you ever, like as a kid, you'd fall over and hurt your knee, or you got like friends that got young kids, you have 2 seconds before you're like, they're going to scream, are they going to scream the house down or laugh? Like you're like, they didn't do anything for 2 seconds. It's because you're like into the sort of the physical sensation. I mean, the quickest way to get out of your mind ever is to get into your body. So my body really cleverly sought a way of me getting out of my mind. For me, it was causing pain that I didn't physically feel, and it numbed the sensations I was having in my mind. The way I got out of it, honestly, I had one therapist that I felt very judged by, and I remember him turning up to sessions with books on like how to save your marriage. And at the time, the reason I was going was because I was trying to make the decision, and I remember being like, I feel really judged. I feel this is really judgmental. And, I just thought you might like this. And I was like, okay, is this what you think I should do? I'm coming to you for help. And it was like, I'm not telling you anything. You're like, brilliant. So hilariously, he reached out to me not so long ago to ask to collaborate. And I was like, wow. And absolutely not, delete. And then, and then I'm happy to end this. It's quite spooky. So everywhere I went for a period of time, EMDR. I'd sit next to someone on the plane. What do you do? I'm an EMDR practitioner. I was like, oh, weird. I'd pick up a magazine, EMDR. Anywhere I went, everything I did, and I'm a bit spooky woman. I was like, right, okay, you've got my attention, EMDR. So then I wanted to train in it, and then I looked for someone that did it near me, because I'm never going to do anything ever with a client that I don't do myself and completely believe in. I can't bear the fake guru space. So I was like, right, I'm going to go and do this experience for myself. Found Pia, who was in my book, who isn't too far from me. And it was just such an amazing experience, like one of these very traumatic memories from my childhood, from a period of violence that I would see, honestly, on repeat 2 or 3 times a day. Deeply shameful, so vivid. It was anchored in my system. And in one session, I mean, now I would struggle to get hold of it. And it's almost like it didn't happen. And that truly haunted me and kept me small for years and years and years. And I was so ashamed. And then that process of working with her and like lifting this out of my system, becoming friends with my parts, all of my many eccentric, exciting parts, that I remember having a revelation that I was doing it to myself. And I know that how that sounds, that sounds insane, that I didn't realise that I was doing it to myself. But I had a revelation through that process that it was actually, I didn't have bad skin. It was me harming myself. And then also that's when I switched to being like, right, I'm not using anything at all that is remotely kind of, acidy or anything like that. I'm just going to literally love myself, basically. And loving myself meant being really gentle. And everything I'd done before then was hard. And I used to do it. She helped me realise I did it in the shower, but I would also sometimes do it driving when I was alone. So it was places that I would just be alone and my brain was just desperate to overwhelm me with thoughts, because it's like a good place to think in the car and you're on your own. And that was where I would do it as well, where it was times that, I would guess my system was so overloaded that it was just, here we go, here's an instant way to pop the balloon. Here's an instant way to get the stress out. And that was how it started.
It's so difficult, isn't it? And I think that's the thing with OCD, is it wants you to isolate so that it can get its tentacles in further, because it knows that as soon as you have that time to ruminate and you're in your thoughts, actually it will really get its grips even tighter. And then the trouble is it's a double-edged sword, because you then start to want to isolate more because you feel you need to isolate in order to sort of feed the OCD, because it's causing you such anxiety that you think the only way to alleviate this anxiety is to give in to the compulsion of the skin picking. And I guess it was ever accompanied by a thought, the skin picking, that X will happen if I don't? Or was it purely that sort of...
With the skin picking, no, but I did have that after I had my daughter. So I had postnatal anxiety after I had Amber, and that was immediate. Like the jumps of my brain just when I've got the pram, she's in it, there's a car driving down the road, she is dead. Car is in the pram, she is dead. I'm driving along the road, there's a car over there, car is in the back of my car, she is dead. My brain just skipped the stages of, oh, it's driving a bit fast, oh, it's coming towards me. My brain just went from here to absolute catastrophe. And so that was much more extreme. Actually, interestingly, the skin picking came after that. So it was sort of a response, I think. It was always in the background, but it was, like I said, I don't like to say good or bad. It was more active after that experience as well. So that was the first, I think, real sense of being fully out of control that I felt, that my brain was not my friend, it felt at that time. It was really, really out of control, because I guess for me I had this new life, and I know it's very common, so anyone that is maybe going through this and motherhood, it's very, very common. I think more common than we talk about, actually. And everyone's like, oh, it's normal, it's your hormones. It's like, I don't, actually there is help, and please do talk about it. So that was the first time I really experienced that. But I am very familiar with the, if I don't do this. So I work a lot in sports, I work a lot in elite sports. There's a lot of it, a lot of OCD, a lot of habitualized behaviors. You see the guys, say, let's just say football, socks up or down, tapping things, doing a certain routine. I mean, that could be because once it was lucky, but usually it's gone to a place now whereby if these things aren't done in this order, then something catastrophic is going to happen. And so there's a huge amount of ritual and around OCD that we see a lot in a lot of places, particularly under a lot of pressure and high performance.
It's such an interesting condition, OCD, and we're trying to, with the podcast, raise much more awareness around it, because I think so many more people struggle with it than we know about, and it's been normalised in so many circles, like in the elite sporting circle. It's like, oh yeah, well, Djokovic will just bounce the ball a certain number of times, and he will just do what was sort of tuck his hair behind his ear in a particular way, and that's okay because he's a footballer, and that's just slightly superstitious. And as you've seen in your work, it actually gets to the point where your nervous system is in that state where it's like, if I don't do this, then it's going to be a terrible game. The outcome's going to be absolutely disastrous. And a normal person will say, well, just try not doing it, and then see that it's not disastrous. But your nervous system is so dysregulated that, again, it's that life or death. I've actually got to do it, because otherwise it's going to distract me so much during the game that I'm not even, I'm going to almost create the eventuality that the OCD is predicting is going to be the worst outcome.
It's a siren song. You'll know that. OCD is a siren song that you feel you have to answer. And for people that I know, there'll be a lot of people that didn't know what they were doing was OCD, the skin. Because like I said, when I put my post out, people were like, oh, there's a name for it. And I remember for me, when I knew there was a name for it, that was everything. Like my world just suddenly softened, because I honestly thought I was mad. And, as soon as it's a condition, that's why I wrote my book, as soon as you realise it's not just you, when it was a condition, when there was a name for it, when there were stages that I could recognise in articles or communities or groups or forums or listening to your podcast, then I'm not alone. And if I'm not alone, that means there's hope. And all I needed was some hope. So I love that you're doing this, and I love that we're having these conversations, and I really want anyone, I'll answer it's me in the DMs. If anyone is experiencing what I'm talking about, please DM me. I feel really passionately about this, and that's why I did the book in the way that I did, with my story so openly, my client's story so openly, expert interviews about how these things are almost like spoon-fed to us, the shame. So, you know, society and a lot of like medical establishments and other places just ladle on shame for us because I think it makes us easier to control. But it's really important as well, as you say, that there's, oh, well, it's fine for them, so it's completely normal. But, you know, and as you said, and you're forced to hide your own habits and behaviours. But it is this siren song. So we're like, oh, just stop it. Oh, just don't do that. Oh, just go the other way. Don't work out today. You'll be fine. Eat a bun. Amazing. Thanks so much. It's really helpful. And then, as you know, it's almost like, you know, Ariel when she comes to the surface to be a human again. And it's like, it's this sound, this like urge, this sensation. And I'm not glamorizing it at all. I just remember the pull. Yeah, it was like a magnetic really pull. Is. And then there can be a side of it that if you don't, then this is going to happen to that person that you love, or this thing, or so it's so complicated. I'm really glad we're having the conversation about it. And the thing I'm the most glad about is that people are going to find this and know that they are not on their own. And there are communities, there are names, there are diagnoses, if you want to call it that. But all of these conditions with names on means that people have gone there before, and you can work through this and you can feel better.
And another thing I'd like to say to listeners, because this is something I'm trying to catch myself doing now, which I definitely fell into the trap of thinking for many, many years, is it's like, but mine's different. Mine's way more extreme than that. Mine's the type of OCD that can never be healed, because mine is also about mental ruminations and sequences of people I have to imagine, and because it's attached to an eating disorder and it's attached to an exercise addiction, I'm never going to be fixed. It's such a sort of extreme version of any of this stuff. And the truth is like you said, as the more conversations we have, the more relatability we find, and actually we realise that we're so not alone. And for me, it's been the biggest game changer, is not only starting this podcast, but just finding communities of people who also struggle with the same thing. And it's just such a relief. Because I think also another thing that we do in society is we look at other people, you know, compare and despair. And I do it again. I'm guilty of, at the moment, looking at people who are married and with kids. And I even sit here looking at you and I'm like, but how she managed to be, you know, in a relationship and with a kid, it can't have, you know, it didn't sort of goes to those levels, whereas mine's completely isolated me to the point where I'm never going to end up with anyone and I'm never going to be a mother. And it's like I'm sure we all struggle with those thoughts to differing degrees. And it's just knowing that yours isn't the most extreme case. It might be extreme, but it is, you know, not the most extreme. And there are tools. And as you found with the MDR, it might be that, you know, it's actually exposure response prevention, whatever it is that works for you. And that's why I almost see these things as it's like you've got to keep fishing until you find that thing that actually resonates with you. And it might be multiple things. Like for me, it's definitely been that. It's been
definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know. So have you found other tools as well as the MDR that have really helped you?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say as well, because I loved what you just said and how you framed it, that shame. So shame is but you're the unique snowflake. It won't work for you. And the reason shame's saying that is because heaven forbid you try. Because shame knows it's going to lose all of its power. Shame can only control you as long as you believe you're the only one. Shame can only control you as long as you believe you're broken and you're alone, and you will always be that way. So that is shame pulling you away from, you know, even things that are resonating, be like, oh yeah, but it won't apply to you. That won't work for you. And then there's no point trying, because then you're still not going to end up with this or that or the other. And like, let's just stay where we are.
Yeah, because I'm your friend.
Exactly. So that is shame. So that's coming through, because I know some people might be like, oh, how do I know if it's shame? Like, that's shame. Anything that is effectively trying to isolate you, to keep you small, to keep you away from, to snuff out hope like a candle snuffer, that is shame. You are listening to shame. You did nothing wrong. It's in your system. Most of us pick up shame. You're never born with shame. No babies are born with shame. We're not born ashamed. We are given shame a lot of the time from other experiences. We take it on, and it becomes like a, you know, then it gets laid, and then we have situations that gets revalidated a lot, but that is shame coming through, just because it knows you're changing as well. It's hanging onto your coattails, going like, don't, no, stay with me, because it knows you're going to bust out. But yeah, other techniques that I like, I'm a big fan of somatic. So, you know, the body does keep the score, and I call it like the issues in your tissues. So EMDR for me. Also, so one school of thought might be helpful to introduce as kind of like a growing body of research in the trauma space at the moment, around talk therapy, that it can be brilliant, and I'm a massive fan of it. But also for some people, we get to a place where it's like, it for me as well, it reactivates the shame or the stress or the thing, and then you're like, time's up, off you go, and then you just take it away with you, and there's nowhere for it to go. So for me, EMDR was so powerful because it's also it's moving the trauma outside of my body. It's releasing it from where it's being stored in my body, even though it's like I'm very physically working. I've got a very bad neck today, so I'm doing it all day yesterday, the eye movement. And, so we're by either tapping or eye movement, we are processing the event out of a body, out of the system. I checked in with 2 clients yesterday. One's got a really bad headache, because you're purging, it's coming out. But I'm a big fan of somatics. I don't like to be prescriptive either. So, if you enjoy yoga, do that. If you want to get in the car and scream and put music on, do that. If you've got a good somatic practitioner that you feel safe with, that you can do some of the like vibrational work, if you can do some really deep breath work with someone, go and do that. If walking around a park, because actually it's really clever going on a walk because your eyes are bilaterally scanning the horizon all the time, go and do that, and maybe take a thought that you're ready to open up a little bit yourself. Just even you're ready to process an idea or a thought, go and do that while moving. That's why, walking is so good for us. You're actively discharging the stress in the movement, the walking, generally keeping your nervous system online, because you've got your 3 centres, the amygdala, the limbic system, where our emotional reactive self lives. And you're keeping your prefrontal cortex online, which is time, states, information, rationality, because your eyes are bilaterally scanning the horizon. So that's why a lot of people pace if you're taking a certain phone call. We do it naturally. We do lots of things naturally.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think the thing with all these things is that people with OCD often struggle with making them into rituals.
Yeah.
And so someone will say to me, oh, we'll go for a walk, it's really great. And then every day it's like, I have to go for a walk. Oh, do some yoga. Okay, right, every day I have to do the road. And then it becomes this mounting list of to-dos. Yeah. And I get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that I'm doing on top of just trying to live a day-to-day life. And I don't know how you manage that. And I don't know whether that's something that you will.
I really do. So 2 great things to do. Do a to-don't list. So I had a to-don't list, which was, what are the things that make me feel like shit? So I'm to-don'ting. What are the things, and honestly, people. There were some people that are not bad people at all, but when I spent time with them, I felt bad. And it was either the context of the conversations or just not resonating. And I'm like, I have to get myself healthy, and that includes environmental. So people, places and things. So have a look at people, places and things that make you feel bad and put it on the to-don't list. Doesn't have to be forever, but let's just cut those, some things that make, if we're going to do a intolerance diet or whatever, we'd cut out some things and we'd reintroduce them slowly to see how we would go. Yeah. Do the same thing. I mean, I'm a big fan of should, in my opinion, should be a swear word. We have, particularly OCD, so many shoulds. I should do this, I should do that, I should do this, I should do that, I should do this by the time, I should do this, I should do this, I should be better, I should hide this, it becomes this massive pile. We are shoulding all over ourselves in this society, and everyone's got this massive pile of shoulds. Write down every single one of your shoulds. Be prepared that it might be 2-3 sides of long piece of paper. Most of the time, the shoulds are for other people. And that includes societal expectations that we believe we need to meet. Then, ideally take a minute, have a look at what you want, what you actually want to do, how you actually want to spend your time. And sometimes that's a really hard question, what do I want? Because sometimes it feels too far from where we are. So another way of framing that question, which helped me, was what would give me the most pleasure or peace in this moment. So it might be, do you know what, I need to cancel the next thing. What would give me the most pleasure or peace is, it's a really nice day, I'm going to go and get a coffee, I'm going to take a walk and a book and sit on a bench. It's actually going to give me more peace than trying to do these other things that I had in my diary for today. So have a look at that instead and reframe it as pockets of pleasure, pockets of peace, because the energy, as you can probably hear, is so different. And then it's just a case of almost taking one more should out. You can come back to the shoulds if you want. Put them in a top drawer. In coaching world, we call it the parking lot. Put it in the parking lot. it's long-term parking at Gatwick. We'll come back to it, okay? We'll come back to it. A lot of them will just fall away. And then you're left with things, and also you're learning things about you rather than this very alluring hamster wheel of activity that we can be in, because fundamentally we're taking exits from being intimate with ourselves and just this busyness, which is also fueling the nervous system, which is also fueling the what is running out our resources, our energy, our battery, our sense of self has gone through the floor. So we have no resiliency against the, you need to do this now. We have no resiliency against that voice. So train the muscle of peace and pleasure.
Yeah, such good advice. And I think I love that analogy of just, you sort of, putting it in the top drawer in the parking lot and actually recognizing that the whole world's not going to implode if you don't do that list of shoulds. I mean, for me at the weekend when I was staying with my friend, usually I like to stretch twice a day, and I just didn't have time to do my second stretch, and I really was trying to experiment with myself and not doing it before I left, because I kind of knew that was giving into my OCD. And I thought, well, I'll do it later if there's a window of like 20 minutes. And there wasn't. And I had to cope. And did I wake up like a stiff board and sort of with neck pain and back pain? No, I didn't. And I almost had to, really, I had to go through that. Oh God, I really want to disappear into a room. And I was like, no, that's just not normal behavior, because it's just not, it's not a natural. So anyway.
No, it's great, because you've sat in the discomfort.
Yeah.
And that discomfort, you've come out the other, you did that once, a period of discomfort. And so I would almost, and I used to do this, keep a list on my phone of the times that I didn't do things, because you're like, so the inner critic sits on top of shame, because your inner critic is the thing constantly patrolling and in your head all the time, the voice you can hear all the time, because it doesn't want you to slip up. It doesn't want you to show your real self, because you'll be rejected with your shame. So if you can present a dossier of evidence, because when you're about to change as well, the inner critic goes mad. The inner critic is going to chuck the kitchen sink at you. Oh, remember when you were 10, you did that ridiculous thing and everyone laughed at you and you failed? Oh, who's going to listen to your podcast? What's the point of even doing it? That's the inner critic, right? Oh, if you don't do that, you're going to feel terrible tomorrow. And we're really used to that voice. If you can pop up a list of the times that we in fact did or didn't do something and everything was fine, you literally feel it go, and it might still be a bit stroppy, like, oh, all right then. That is the inner critic, is a bit like a stroppy kind of teenager, but it does lower. And the reason that it's becoming very active is when you're, like I say, on the precipice of making a change and it knows it. And it's like a well-meaning friend that's just got it wrong in its language, because its job is to keep you safe, the inner critic. But the only way it can possibly keep you safe is within the known. And what's the known? Your comfort zone. Even if sort of the discomfort, if you like, to others or what we think we should be doing, it's still known. So it can keep you safe there, because that's what we do every day. That's how we operate. This is what we do. So if you're about to break out of that, it can't guarantee your safety. And so it's going to start, like I say, being really activated and quite shitty and saying terrible things to you, because you're about to do something it can't trust. It's like an overbearing auntie. Oh, you shouldn't do that. What if it goes wrong? What if something fails? What if you fail? And so it's kind of doing it in this loving way, but like I say, sort of unskillfully. And if you have that dossier of the time that we did hard things, we're not talking like an ultra marathon or whatever. I'm saying, I didn't do that, didn't have time, and I felt uncomfortable, but I got through it and I was okay. That is the top of the mountain, right on that list, and then have a few more, so that every time there is another challenge, you can remind it of the times that you faced a challenge and you were okay, and you will feel it come down. You will feel it, you will literally feel it and your body come down the level, and that is free. Like I say, we can do the list of shoulds on paper, please. Don't keep that on your phone. Put that in the drawer. Have the inquiry into the pleasure pockets and what gives you peace, and definitely keep the dossier of evidence, as if you're the CIA, about listen, my friend, we're good. I still sometimes, I'm going to level up. I get it. Well, what if this, what if that? And it's like, we've done hard things. We're okay.
Yeah, and I love that dossier of evidence, because actually the more that you do it, the more that your mind can go back to remember that time when I resisted that urge and it was okay. That time that I went away for 2 days and I didn't do X, Y, and Z, and actually I had a really great time. And the more that you can create those sort of, you say it, more that you can put them on a dossier, or you can have them just stored in the back of your mind as that was evidence of me really being myself and not being consumed by shame, not being consumed by my OCD, whatever it was. And actually, it's amazing how the self starts to appear more and more. And I've just noticed, like, in little day-to-day sort of life, I mean, I'm going to rephrase that, sort of small bits day to day, I'm tending to show up just in a bit more of a confident space. And again, not wanting to shrink and actually taking some risks and actually being okay with being rejected. And of course, none of us like being rejected, but putting yourself, because I think those of us who are consumed by shame, we often don't even put ourselves in a position where we could be rejected, because we're so, we either basically isolate and don't give ourselves the opportunity to be rejected at all, or we're sort of doing things that we know that we can do, and it's sort of just everything becomes the same. So it's that sort of taking some risks, which I think can bring colour to life. I'd love to talk a bit about unapologetic, and this again, it feeds into this sort of theme of shame, because you really talk about the fact that women need to take up space and sort of not feeling too much and not wanting to shrink away. And how can we do that, particularly as women? And why do you think women struggle with it so much?
I mean, I think we're conditioned. I think we're told, and I know boys have it too, but I think we're told to be polite, colour within the lines. The reason it's called unapologetic is that the likelihood is if you and I were out and we were having a conversation with a group and someone got upset, as the first tear rolls down their cheek, the word out of their mouth will be sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. And I'm always like, why? Why do we apologise for the most natural response for our emotions? I tell my daughter if she's upset or crying, because obviously I don't want her to store it, I'm like, baby, it's really clever. Like, you hurt yourself, you're letting the stress out. Obviously after my experience, and it's a clever thing to do. You're feeling sad, you want to release it. It's the most natural. It's an honour to watch someone that feels safe enough with you, or they've had an experience to be able to have that emotion with you. And yet we minimise it straight away. And I think it's like, if I was to get upset now, I would feel like I was being messy. I would feel like I'm imposing on you, like I'm pushing, like this is too much of a mess for you to deal with. Like, Pandora doesn't need your messy emotions, Annalie. Like, why are you doing that? It's imperfect of me. It's impolite of me even. Like, I'm taking up space by, all of my emotions being out here, and that's not fair on you. Like, we have all this sense of smallness built into us, that it's, I would be messy, and it would not be okay for me to do that to you, and I'm taking up too much space. And then I do think there is this kind of bizarre push-pull as women of, hey babe, be a boss, have everything, have all of it, like do all of it, have everything, do it all yourself, be a high-value woman, do all these things. And I am completely on board with all of it. But then you fly too close to the sun, like Icarus, like you're shining too bright. Who does she think she is? Oh, you didn't used to do that. You didn't. Why are you doing this now? Like, like there's all these kind of, and it's usually a woman, because I think we're inbuilt to have this sort of, again, like safety mechanism. It's this whole, oh, hey queen, let me polish your crown. But it is a woman that will be the first to pull you down if you start doing something new. And I think that we haven't realised that. I love men, by the way, and most of my private clients are men actually, and I'm a very loving human, so I don't want this to sound sort of anti-guys, but I do think the patriarchy is geared up for women to fight one another. I think that shame is utilised to keep us compliant and competitive. I think that when another woman shines, there's something within us that makes us feel deeply uncomfortable and unsafe with her being in this, bigger role. And what does that mean about us? There's just this inherent sort of competition. I wrote an article the other day about love triangles, and I hadn't really gone into it. And they asked me about my favourite movie from it. I put like Cruel Intentions had a great love triangle. I don't know if you remember that. It was so like interlinked. But it really made me think that it's been used since like the ancient Greek times, and then even Cinderella was kind of a love triangle with like, and then you have to be pursued and chased, and unless there's drama in romance, then it's just boring and pointless, and they don't really want you unless there's some kind of fight. And you view a woman as competition all the time. There's another woman vying for their attention. Their ex is on the scene. There's like, it's kind of inbuilt into so much of our language as well. And so I really, I'm a big fan of, girls coming together and cheering for one another. Like, you've got your business, I'm doing my thing. If you've got a friend in this space, cheer hard for them, like hard, because it's bloody hard. And the more that we can do together, it's going to be just a much nicer place and world. And, it's just nicer to want the best for people. It really is. There are some people out here that are not great. that's on them. And then you find the people that are your people and just really cheer hard for them. But I do think shame is this almost like electric fence that we're kind of aware of, but no one ever gave us the rule book of what is okay and what's too much. But like I say, we just have this sense, we get closer and we're like, oh no, I better not, because then they might think I'm showing off. Or I better not celebrate that because that might make you feel bad. Or I better not, we dim down all the time. I feel like we're constantly recalibrating, like 3 or 4 notches down all the time. And that's why I wanted to write it.
I know, it is very powerful to hear, because I think it's sort of juxtaposed with that not feeling enough and not doing enough, not being enough. And I think it's something that definitely my friends are going through at the moment in early motherhood, and I hear it on repeat. I'm not being a good mother, I'm not showing up for my husband, I'm not performing at work, I'm not like looking after myself at all. And it feels like I'm on sort of 20% on everything, and I want to be firing on 80-90% on everything. And it's not realistic, but it's also, as you said, it's showing up in a way that you can really step into that power and feel good about it. And I think it's so hard in life, isn't it? It's just, getting that balance right.
Yeah, and I think the initial breaking out, especially when you're, say, transitioning into something else, either into a relationship, and some friends, I hate to say, will not be delighted for you. And it's really horrible, because you're like, but I've been really heartbroken, I've had a really difficult time, things are really tricky for me. I finally found this lovely relationship. I lost a friend when I got my book deal. I lost a friend when I met my partner. And you're like, well, we've been together, I've supported you, like you've seen me really down. And some people just will not be happy for you as they either see you kind of transform a little bit, or they feel that they're losing a part of you, which, I understand that, I hold space for it. But yeah, I think there's so many nuances to this dance, and especially where shame has an involvement, just telling you all the time, like, oh, they don't really want that for you, or don't do that, or just don't be your full unapologetic self. And we have to stop saying sorry for our essence. We have to stop saying sorry for all the eclectic. My parts don't make any sense. If I was a jigsaw puzzle, the bits would not fit together. And I love that. I am the sum of so many different things. I'm interested in all these different bits and pieces. I have so many different parts in my life, and they wouldn't add up to a round number, and that's fine, and I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. And I just really want people to understand that the more and more and more you try, or OCD or something else helps you to try and force yourself into this perfect container or box, the further and further and further you're going from your authentic self, and you are doing yourself more harm than you realise, because as you and I may be experiencing, the swim back to shore, because it carries you out, right? It's easy to get carried out with it because you've got this extra sort of, the swim back in is tiring but so fulfilling, and you will get back there, and it's like you just look out again and you're like, I did it, I did all of that, and now I'm ready to really live my life.
Yeah, and I just think, like you said, your life's only just beginning now, and you feel you're stepping into yourself, and for me that is so inspiring, because I think we're often under this illusion that everyone's got to have it sorted by a certain age, and actually it's so far from the truth. It's
a big shame statement I see and hear a lot, is it's too late, or it's too late for me. And that is definitely shame as well. It is never, ever, ever too late to free yourself. It's never too late to love yourself. It's never too late to learn about yourself. It's never too late to accept yourself and find your worthiness. It's never too late for that.
And in saying that, it's also realising that that's also going to be a process, and it's going to take time. 100%. It's not just like, oh, I've decided overnight that I'm suddenly going to just look after myself and be authentically me and show up. It takes a long time to get there. Yeah. So it's kind of like the final destination is actually, not necessarily where we think it's going to be, and it doesn't. It's a long process to swim back to shore.
Yeah, but there is support. There are people. There are great people like you doing this kind of work, having these conversations. I'm not completely done. I'm never completely done. There's always something new that I'm uncovering or learning about. But now it's with certainty of self. And that's just really different to be like, well, I know I'm okay no matter what. I know that I've got me.
What piece of advice would you like to have discovered earlier than you did?
So much of it is other people's stuff is projection, as in like people really, there's a lot going around, like people just really aren't that interested in you and what they're doing. I think that sounds a bit cruel. I don't mean it, and I'm like I said, I'm a very kind, very nurturing person, but yeah, cruelty or unkindness is usually someone else hurting and they're chucking it at you. I think that would have saved me a lot of anxiety trying to work out what I'd done wrong, or yeah, maybe where I, you know, like trying to be better and actually just going, do you know what, they're having their experience and that's fine.
Yeah. Annalie, I could go on for hours, but I'm conscious of time and I know that you've got to go. So yeah, thank you so much. It's been just such an enlightening and just inspiring conversation. And yeah, I think your work is incredible and I'm very excited to hear that you've got more books in the pipeline.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for the work that you're doing. This is something that I wish I had had.
Oh, well, thank you very much.